wasn't going to release one this week. In fact, as I record this, it is 10:57 p.m. on Tuesday, and my typical publication time is 12:02 or 12:03 a.m. So I'm an hour, as I record this, from what should be my release time, which is as fresh as it gets, kids. And I had an episode recorded, and it just didn't work. Just didn't like it, just didn't work. And I was feeling really down about it. And wondering yet again whether I'm spent, whether I'm hollowed out, whether I'm done here. And then I encountered for the first time in my life the word Eucatastrophe. And it turned out in this situation to actually be a Eucatastrophe. And I'm going to attempt to wax semi-eloquent about it very briefly after we do the thing. Okay, I know a lot of words, right? Like, I have a degree in English literature. I know a lot of words. I've never encountered the word Eucatastrophe before, and that's a shame. And I think a little bit surprising because, yeah, my degree is in English literature, for crying out loud. And this is a literary term. Eucatastrophe. Eucatastrophe. Eucatastrophe is, I'm reading from Wikipedia, a sudden turn of events in a story which ensures that the protagonist does not meet some terrible, impending, and plausible and probable doom. The concept was created by the philologist and fantasy author J.R.R. Tolkien in his essay on fairy stories based on a 1939 lecture. The term has since been taken up by other authors and by scholars. Eucatastrophe is a plot device whereby something very unexpected happens, which kind of saves the day. Now, one of my great complaints about, in particular, The Hobbit, the series of films that became The Hobbit, is that it was these rescues out of nowhere that just kept happening over and over and over and over. Like somebody appears just in the nick of time to shoot the guy who's about to shoot the other guy. You know what I mean? This sort of last second out of nowhere rescues just kept happening over and over and over. It was an overused device. And I think technically those are eucatastrophes, which are kind of anti-catastrophes. Tolkien invented the word, and he took the word catastrophe and then put the Greek prefix eu, meaning good, to catastrophe. So it's a good catastrophe, and it's a device whereby somebody very unexpectedly saves the day. People use the scene in The Lord of the Rings where Frodo and Sam get to Mount Doom, and they're standing right there. Just throw in the damn ring, Frodo, and it's over. And he turns around and says, "The ring is mine, Sam." And you see Sam crestfallen, and Frodo turns around, and it would appear as though Sauron has won. But then out of nowhere, Gollum jumps in and jumps on his back and bites his finger off and gets the ring, and then Gollum and the ring fall into the pit, the lake of fire in Mount Doom. That is a eucatastrophe. That is a quite unexpected good catastrophe whereby Gollum jumps in and unexpectedly saves the day, saves Frodo from himself, defeats Sauron by accident, and saves Middle-earth. That is a eucatastrophe. That is an unexpected rescue of a seemingly impossible situation. And it's ironic and fun to me that as I sit here at just about bedtime recording, in a week when I thought, we're not going to have an episode this week, and maybe we're not going to have an episode ever again. It was feeling very Mount Doomy to me in that moment. I encountered, in a set of lyrics, the word eucatastrophe, which I thought was a typo because I've never encountered that word before. And it turned out to be a real thing. And so the act of finding that word Eucatastrophe actually turned out to be a Eucatastrophe in the sense that it was an unexpected rescue of what seemed like an impossible situation. Ain't that fun? And I found that word in the lyrics to a song that was released this week by a band called Klimt 1918. That's Klimt, the year 1918. Now, the YouTube algorithm served that up to me, and anytime I see any reference to 1918, you know what happens if you've been listening for any length of time. I jump immediately to the First World War. You know that I am also a history person. I also have a degree in history, for what it's worth. And my particular historical hobby horse is the First World War, which, of course, ended in 1918. So anytime I see that, I think, ooh, what's the First World War reference? What can we dig into? And even better if it's related to music, because I like it when a song or an artist name inspires or leads to a story, a little rabbit hole that we can go down on this podcast. Well, it was not a reference to the end of the Great War. Klimt 1918. This is a band from Rome, Italy. They've been around since the late 90s. I have not been familiar with them. I've never encountered them before, but apparently they're a thing. And Klimt 1918 is, in fact, a reference to the artist Gustav Klimt, the Austrian artist Gustav Klimt, who died in 1918. Now, if you have been listening for any length of time, you're familiar with Gustav Klimt. You are anyways, whether you realize it or not. Now, back in February of 2023, I released an episode of the old John Huff podcast, which was titled, Who Was Art Deco? And that was an exploration of the Art Deco movement in art design, architecture, etc. And you can't do that, really, without some reference to what came before Art Deco, specifically the Art Nouveau movement and the Vienna Secession, which was largely driven by Gustav Klimt. So if you heard that episode back in the day, this whole, in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, this Art Nouveau movement, this movement of new arts, this rejection by young, creative, aspiring artists of classical traditions, of academic traditions, of a lot of what was going on in the art world, the traditional art world. It was, there's a whole episode about this, February 2023, Who Was Art Deco? You can go hear me expound upon this more eloquently than I'm doing now. The fundamental is the traditional art world rejected a lot of what these new young Klimt artists wanted to do, which was stylistically different. It was dreamlike. It was using a lot of color. It was using a lot of really sensuous curves, stuff based on the inspiration of leaves and nature, stuff that went against the kind of realism and historicism that was most prevalent, particularly in academic art circles of the day. It was an ambitious time. It was La Belle Époque in Europe. That period of time between the end of the Franco-Prussian War in 1871 and the beginning of the First World War in 1914, this golden age of new technology, of science, of culture, of new materials like wrought iron. And they built the Eiffel Tower in 1889 for the World's Fair. And it was the tallest structure on Earth because they didn't have materials before that could go that high, but wrought iron could. And the people of Paris, a lot of them, hated the Eiffel Tower and saw it as this looming, awful, modern industrial monstrosity that was destroying the sitescape, the viewscape of Paris. You can hear all about that in my other episode. This band, Klimt 1918, named itself after Gustav Klimt, who was a artistic secessionist, somebody who had a creative flow and a vibe much different from what was accepted by the establishment at that time. And he died in 1918, which coincidentally was also the end of the First World War, and some would say the ultimate end of La Belle Époque and the actual beginning of the modern world, the modern 20th century, the world as we kind of know it now, began 1918 into 1919. And even if you haven't heard my episode, Who Was Art Deco, you still know Gustav Klimt. If you have ever attended a college or university print sale, if you have ever stepped foot into a college or university dorm room, you know Gustav Klimt because you will have seen his most famous painting, which is The Kiss. And if you think you haven't, go and Google The Kiss by Gustav Klimt, and you will see his most famous work that you have seen before, and you will see some of the hallmarks of Art Nouveau. The weird perspective, the color, the flowers, all of that is Art Nouveau, and so you know Gustav Klimt whether you realize it or not. So it was not a First World War reference, this band Klimt 1918, but it was making reference to the end of an era, this transition between worlds, this sort of old world that existed before the First World War and the new world that came after it. And so there is, I guess, a First World War kind of connection to that. But I just listened to this song and I really liked it. Klimt 1918 is described variously as kind of an alternative rock act. But what I listened to in this new song, which is called Dreamcore, is 100% a shoegaze song. And it's an epic shoegaze song. And I'm not going to describe it to you because describing it doesn't work. But I will say that it has all the hallmarks of shoegaze music, all right? It has these swirling, layered guitar, a lot of feedback, a lot of reverb. I mean, shoegaze is called shoegaze because people were watching these bands play on stage, and all they would see is the top of the guitar player's head because he was always gazing at his feet to hit all of the pedals required to make these sonic textures, to make these dreamlike soundscapes that are the hallmark of shoegaze music. So they're always gazing at their shoes so they can step on the pedals. They called it shoegaze. And as you know, I really like shoegaze music because it is a sort of music that you get lost in. It is trancy. It is this really compelling, hypnotic soundscape. And the vocals on these records, on these songs, tend to be understated. They don't tend to be all that melodic. Sometimes, as is the case with this song Dreamcore, you can barely even hear them. And they're kept very low in the mix a lot of the time, and they just contribute to this sonic situation that's happening. Tons of layered guitar, tons of reverb, tons of effects on the vocals and the guitars. But for me, it just really works. I like the hypnotic nature of it. I like the trance-like nature of it, and I like this one, and it's epic. This song, Dreamcore by Klimt 1918, is just shoegaze on steroids. It's a slow, brooding, moody, dark song, but it's got really earnest, emotional qualities to it. Again, the understated vocals, again, the layered guitars, all of the effects, but it just kind of builds. It starts very quietly, band kicks in, there's a chorus, and it just throughout the song begins to build, begins to build, begins to build, begins to build. By the end, it's just this hugely epic shoegaze song. And I bet it's amazing live. I really bet it's a transcendent kind of experience live. I can't really describe it to you except to say that. Tense, earnest, brooding, melancholy, very, very effective AFFECTIVE song. And I really, really like it. I really, really like it because I like the shoegaze, and this is shoegaze just pumped up. By the end, it's epic. I talked a couple weeks ago about the song I think by Octobernaut, where it's halftime through the whole song, and I'm just dying for it to go to straight time, for that amazing uplift that happens. It did, and this song does that too. It's a whole song of slow, kind of halftime, very brooding. But then the band knows how to rock, man. This band from the remnants of like a metal band back in the 90s. They know what's up. And towards the end of the song, it just kicks in again to one of those straight time transitions, you know. Really, really great. Really, really cool song. And I talked about it in my previous episode, but I was not pleased with how I talked about it. And I was just not pleased generally with that episode. And I thought I was toast. I thought there's just not going to be an episode this week. And the episodes have been so hard to come up with lately that maybe there just aren't going to be any more, because I just feel as though maybe I'm done. And then I thought I'll take one last look here at 11 o'clock at night. I'll take one last look and see if there's anything I can grab onto. And don't I experience a Eucatastrophe in the lyrics to Dreamcore by Klimt 1918. Read the lyrics to you. All the roads that went away from the ruins of that time, in the dust, diving in my eyes, the effort not to belong, the certainty of being gone. A starry night away from home, the black walls that defended Rome made the choice to love again, to go away, as the swallows leave their nests in a shade of gray. You will find my clothes on the unmade bed, all of my unspoken words as if I were dead. Eucatastrophe for life, putting my pride aside, my life that saves my life again. I promise I'll not do it in vain. So shoegaze. So goth, really, in a way. I don't think those two genres are all that far apart from each other on the spectrum. If I encountered this word, Eucatastrophe, and then had the experience of a Eucatastrophe in the finding of that word. Interesting, right? Sometimes, and this is the point, kids, sometimes life just delivers a rescue to you. Sometimes life delivers to you a Eucatastrophe, and it's a wonderful thing to hold on to. Now, I talk a lot on here about trying to be spiritual. I talk a lot about trying to stay positive. I talk about trying to learn from situations. I try to help people have a faith and to surrender to circumstance and to surrender to the future. And I do all of that so as to convince myself, because it's one of my great crucibles. It's one of the things that I continue to wrestle with, is this faith that things are going to be okay, this faith that we will all find our way. And then this surrender, this letting go of the need to control how that happens, the need to control how life unfolds. And that's been my great crucible. Music has taught me to let go of things. Anxiety has taught me how to surrender, but I still find myself in circumstances all the time whereby I am trying to control. And that need to control creates suffering. You know, all life is suffering. All suffering is attachment. Well, needing to control is attachment. Attaching to the outcome of a circumstance, attaching to things having to unfold in a particular way. And a lot of times, life just doesn't work that way. And so, you know, they say that you injure your hand more by hanging on than by letting go. that metaphor of the rope, right? Once in a while, life delivers a Eucatastrophe. It bloody happens. This episode is the evidence. It's thin evidence, all right? It's not life-changing evidence, but it does happen, you know? That job that I got back in the fall of 24 after my separation, needed one, didn't get the one I want. It seemed like a hopeless, unsolvable situation. And then out of nowhere, a Eucatastrophe. Here's a job offer that I didn't even see coming. And this happens to people all the time. People get rescued from situations by circumstance, by life, sometimes a happy accident, sometimes what seems like a catastrophe is actually a Eucatastrophe. I've talked before about people who get laid off, and that seems like catastrophe, and then that turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to them. Or a relationship ends that seems at the time like a catastrophe, and then in retrospect and the way things unfold, they're like, that was a huge rescue. That saved me from so much. And I'm talking about it right now because I'm really excited about learning a new word. And I'm excited about this conceptually, and I think it's just a fun twist that I'm experiencing a Eucatastrophe as I talk about it. But really, I just want to give people an encouragement. I've been talking about a lot of heavy stuff lately, and I've been laying it on thick. At times I've been laying it on about what are you doing with your life and why? And why are you continuing to stay in circumstances that don't serve you, that do not fulfill you? What is it you really want, and why are you not going after it? What is this fear? Sometimes it's helpful to lay that on the table with kind of a kick in the butt. I frequently need that, and when I deliver those episodes, a lot of the time I'm talking to myself. But it's universal. None of us is so unique, really, that our problems are individual. A lot of them are universal experiences, so my experience can be relevant to your experience. If I'm talking about what are you doing with your life and are you wasting it, and time's ticking by, and what are you doing about finding your own happiness and pursuing it, I'm also talking to me. But I understand that sometimes that can feel like a lance is being tilted at you. Right? There is a time for tough love is maybe pushing it a little bit. There's a time to be a motivator in that way. And then there is a time for an arm around the shoulder. And I feel tonight as though maybe some of you could use an arm around the shoulder, because I know some of you are facing tough circumstances. I know some of you are facing tough decisions. I know some of you are in positions you don't want to be in that are difficult to get yourselves out of. And I want this episode, and it's going to be a short one because it has to be, I just want it to be an encouragement to you that things have a way of working out. If you can surrender, if you can let go of control, if you can focus on what it is you actually want and set your desire to that, set your emotion to that, set your intention to that, things do have a way of working out in the end. And I want to instill in those of you who need it just a little bit of faith and encouragement that things will be okay. Things will be okay, even if they feel difficult right now. And I'm in that boat, kids. I'm in that boat right now. My contract is up. Music has dried up like a well in the summertime. This podcast has been a struggle. I'm in that boat too, where it can feel sometimes as though things are just not going to be okay. And it's very easy to slide down the drain. It's very easy to slide down a rabbit hole when you got caught up in things aren't working and things are not going to be okay. But I'm here to remind you and me that things will be okay, and to encourage you to just hold on to what it is you actually do want in life, and to have faith and let go of the need to control how that happens. I mean, we all have to make choices. We all have to take steps. Everything is accomplished by action. Action is necessary, but I want you to hold on to this idea that things work out, right? You can take that action, and you can trust that action, and you can have faith that as you move forward into what you want, as you move forward into your intentions, the way will appear. And in some cases, it may even come with a Eucatastrophe. Something out of nowhere that changes everything utterly for the better and rescues the situation. And I want you to hold on to just a little shred of that. Those of you who are hopeless tonight or this morning, whenever you are listening, those of you who feel as though you can't get out of it, those of you who feel as though change is too difficult, too forbidding, impossible, Eucatastrophe happens. Eucatastrophe happens. I don't know if it's something to count on, but it does happen. And I want that just to be a little sliver of encouragement to you. And I want my words to be a sliver of encouragement to you. Look at your own life. Haven't things more or less worked out? Even the hardest situations, I know it's not the case all the time for everyone, but it does no good to get lost in the worry. It does no good to go down the drain. And so if nothing else, hold on to this idea of a Eucatastrophe, that you may in fact be rescued in the end. Be of good cheer, citizens. This is beginning to become a late night ramble, but I'm Eucatastrophizing here right now. we are rescuing an episode that I thought was lost. And it's just on my heart. On my heart, which I've struggled mightily in the past year and a half to put into much of anything. It's on my heart right now to tell you, gentle listener, wherever you are in the world, that things can be okay. You know, you can find your way out of circumstances. And once in a while, life will deliver to you a Eucatastrophe. We'll just jump in and rescue you like the eagles in the Lord of the Rings. Also a device that was pretty convenient at times. I just want you to hold on to your faith. I want me to hold on to my faith. I want you to look at your life and say, I don't want this and I do want this. And I want you to follow that which you want with the faith that it can work out for you and to release control of how that unfolds, you know, and trust in life to deliver upon your good intention. I'm telling that to you and I'm telling that to me. And I want you to enter this day uplifted in spirit, uplifted in faith, knowing that things will be okay and you will find your way and I will find my way. And there will come a time when we look back upon right now and we say, we made it through and all is well. And maybe if we're in line for a bit of drama, that will come with a Eucatastrophe. And if nothing else, if you didn't know that word before, now you do. I got to cut this one off. I got to edit it and get it up and then go to friggin' bed. I'm really pleased, actually, by this weird Eucatastrophe that happened. Go listen to Dreamcore by Klimt1918. I will put that on the podcast playlist on Spotify. Semi-Eloquent with John Huff, referenced on the Pod 2026 playlist. It's got the music on it, which I've been talking about so far this year. Really, really like that song. And if you're into some of the shoegazy stuff, some of the alt stuff that I talk about, really, really cool song and very evocative, very affective, really, really worth checking out. I'm going to go, except to say good things happen when you put yourself out there and just have a little faith, okay? Everything is going to work out great. Bit of courage, bit of faith, and then surrender control of how things unfold. Surrender for you, surrender for me, and everything's going to be okay.